for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda as written? Alderman Dumas.
Under Mayor's business, I'd like to place all three of those on consent.
All right. Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place items 9, A, B, and C on the consent agenda. Those items are as follows. The approval of the contract between the Mississippi Department of Human Services and the City of Starkville as sub-grantee for the administration of the grant funds for the Brick Fire project for grant number 467Q631A from October 1st, 2012 to September 30th, 2013, as presented. The approval of each of the letters of agreement between Child Fund International, United Way, and the Starkville Housing Authority and the City of Starkville on behalf of the Golden Triangle African American Cultural Society, DBA, Brick Fire Project, and Miss Helen Taylor, as presented. And finally, the approval of the contract between the City of Starkville and the African American Cultural Society doing business as Brick Fire Project and Miss Helen Taylor as the secondary sub-grantee for the grant number 467Q631A from the Mississippi Department of Human Services as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda.
Under board business, item A, noting that this is the same millage rate as last year.
Can we do that prior to the hearing? Yeah, we need to have the hearing first.
Okay.
Which one?
He had proposed revising the agenda to place the setting of the millage at 20 mills on the consent agenda. That needs to follow the public hearing.
Under personnel, all four items on consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to place items 11I1 through item 11I4 on the consent agenda. Those items are as follows. The hiring of Scott Lomax to fill the vacant position of certified police officer as presented. The transfer of Nathaniel Hinton to fill the vacant position of maintenance worker in the water department as presented. The hire of Terry R. Williams to fill the vacant position of laborer in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department as presented. The authorization to advertise to fill the vacant position of operator in the Landscape Division of the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda.
I have no further revisions.
All right, are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board?
Mayor, I've got one. I'd like to move item J under board business up to the first item under board business. Would be item A.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Carver is to reorder the agenda to place item 10J as item 10A and re-letter corresponding board business. Alderman Carver, is that your proposed revision?
Yes.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change. Do we have further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Any further proposed revisions? All right, seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the approval of the consent agenda as revised. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. We have no minutes before us tonight. That will take us to announcements and comments. And I am pleased to be able to introduce several new members of the City of Starkville workforce this evening. First, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Weaver, our newest firefighter. The City of Starkville would like to welcome Jeremy Weaver as our newest firefighter. Jeremy is originally from Starkville and is a graduate of Starkville High School. He attended Delta State University and majored in physical education and criminal justice. Previously, Jeremy worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken as a cook and at the Oktibbeha County Sheriff's Office as a jailer. He also spent time coaching football on the junior high and high school and junior college levels. Jeremy is the son of Mrs. M.E. Weaver and has 3 sisters. When he isn't busy with work, Jeremy enjoys all sports, reading, writing, and spending time with his dog, Stewie. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy Weaver to the City of Starkville. I'd now like to introduce Kimby Harris, our newest apprentice lineman. Kimby is originally from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. He is a graduate of Kosciuszko High School, Whippets. He attended the University of Mississippi and majored in engineering and accounting. He also attended Holmes Community College, where he became a certified electrical lineman. Before joining the City of Starkville, Kimby worked at Fred's Dollar Store as a stocker. Kimby is the son of Keith and Janice Harris and has an older brother and 2 older sisters. He and his family attend Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church. In his spare time, Kimby enjoys hunting and fishing and spending time with his dog, Tut. Please join me in welcoming Kimby. I now have the honor of introducing Harold Lindsay, our newest laborer in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Harold is originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and is a graduate of Starkville High School. Before joining the City of Starkville, Harold worked at Remington's Hunt Club as a security guard. Harold is the son of Mary Prater and Harold Lindsay Jr. He and his family attend Victory Center Church. In his spare time, he enjoys weightlifting. Please join me in welcoming Harold. And now I'd like to introduce Melvin Spencer, our newest laborer in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Melvin is originally from Starkville and is a graduate of Starkville High School. This is Melvin's first full-time job. He is the proud father of 3 children, Jacaylee, Jamelvin, and Madison. His family attends St. Matthew's Church. In his spare time, Melvin enjoys auto mechanics. Please join me in welcoming Melvin. And finally, I'd like to introduce Patricia Hernandez. And Patricia is actually not a new employee, but rather an intern that will be working with us through the semester. She is a student at Mississippi University for Women, and she will be working as an intern for the Office of Finance and the City Clerk's Office. Patricia is originally from Panama. After receiving a full academic scholarship, Patricia began her studies at MUW in 2009. She plans to finish her studies in December and graduate with a degree in political science. Patricia has been accepted to the University of Arizona, where she plans to pursue a master's degree in Geographic Information Science Technology. After completing her master's degree, Patricia hopes to return to Panama to work for a governmental organization, either in political science or GIS. Please join me in welcoming Patricia. That will conclude my announcements for this evening. Do we have any announcements from the members of the board? Alderman Sistrunk.
I think that many of you, maybe not all of you, know that my mother passed away the Tuesday of the last board meeting, and I want to thank you all for your thoughts and prayers during that time, and I want to thank you for your patience, and especially those of you up here at the board table as we went through the last part of my mother's life. But thank you for making it an easier process.
Further announcements and comments from the members of the board? Do we have any further announcements and comments from the members of the board? Any further announcements and comments? Seeing none, we will move to citizen comments. At this time, anyone wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. And since we have a fairly large crowd tonight, I just remind you, I don't generally police who comes up here and when you come up here, so if you'll just extend courtesy to each other and not come up here while somebody else is speaking. I'll just depend on you to yield to somebody else when they've risen to come forward. Mr. Turner?
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. I want to recognize Vice Mayor Sid Trump, and we're sorry to hear that, and I want to recognize Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
The citizens sort of fired up with a lot of things that have been happening. They have been making requests, and they have fell on deaf ears. They made requests out of the health department to check out Carver Drive. It was null and void. They asked for a budget chairman. We don't know who that are. Did anything about it. The city clerk office, we like it as Starkville city clerk office. That failed on deaf ears. So that has people very do not know who they can trust or what they can trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further citizen comments? Yes, sir.
I'm Chuck Scarborough. I live at 2305 Douglas MacArthur Drive in Green Oaks subdivision. And I'd like to comment on item number 10J, which has been moved to the front, renumbered, relettered. It's been about 13 years since the streets in Green Oaks were closed, and things are a lot more pleasant in the subdivision. And it seems that this new proposal seems to be a way of splitting the support for keeping the streets closed. That's not going to happen. We tried this for a while, leaving signage, and that didn't work very well. People aren't looking for signage, so they're looking in some other direction, and even if they are, they still go in and out. And it led to a substantial increase in the traffic from what it had been. Well, let's put it this way. There was a substantial decrease in the traffic when the gate was up from what it had been when just only the signage was up. And my bedroom window is 40 feet from the street. And all along MacArthur, they're about 40 feet from the street. And this street was never designed to be a major traffic artery. And despite the signage, that's what it's going to become. Because that was our experience the last time. So the Green Oaks Homeowners Association, of which I am the president, is 100% against removing that gate. I don't know of any reason why that gate should be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scarborough. Great. Maintain decorum. I'll ask that you maintain decorum, and please don't respond by clapping or otherwise after each speaker has had a chance to speak. Mr. Bagwell.
from 2201 MacArthur Drive. It has been a very pleasant neighborhood since the gate has been closed. I've got an 11-year-old son, William. He's able to get out on his scooter and his bicycle. It's all kind of folks walk. All kind of folks come from other neighborhoods to come over there and walk. I would appreciate if that gates remain closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell.
I'm Michelle Tan, and I am born and raised in Starkville. I'm a little bit shaky, nervous. I actually represent one of the children who was hit by a car, and the reason those gates were closed and those exits were closed. I guess I was about 10 years old. It was the summer after 4th grade, and there was someone passing through on Penneck Drive. They were actually trying to maneuver their way and figure out how to pass through to Stark Road. They missed a turn, and they, going 35 miles an hour, they never stopped. They actually came up into a neighbor's yard as they were turning and hit me. I was riding my mother's bike instead of a small child's bike, thank goodness, or I would have received the majority of the impact. My head hit that windshield. I broke it from the top left corner to the bottom right. Men jumped off a roof that they were working on to come and help me. When that guy hit his brakes is when I slid off his windshield onto the pavement. So my little brother, who's about 3 years younger than me, was sitting in our front yard, watched the whole thing happen, had to run and get parents. So I know of other children as I grew up in Green Oaks, at least one other girl that was hit by a car. So I just want to come and, I represent one of the reasons that those were closed off due to such pass-through traffic. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Tan.
I'm Karen Russell, 2407 Douglas MacArthur. I have 3 boys, ages 9 to 12, who play football and frisbee in the road, and it's been really pleasant, but we live on the bottom side of a hill, and I hope I don't get a retroactive ticket, but I remember being a teenager in this town and cutting through that neighborhood all the time, and that could have been me and ruined both mine and her life. And there's no good reason for it to be open. Maybe emergency access with a key card or something, because I know Dr. Fleetwood, that was a big issue. When it first got put up, she was afraid she couldn't get to the hospital, and that's the only necessary reason it should be open, and it should have like a gate key or something like that. But not, if we had known it would ever had the option of be open, we would have never bought in the neighborhood in the first place. And I've heard somebody else say that, Jason, wherever you put Jason, it's gonna make our property values go down, and I worry for my children, mainly. That's my number one reason, my 3 boys. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jan High, and I live at 2808 Plum Road at the corner of Douglas MacArthur and Plum. We have lived out there almost 10 years. When we first bought the house, we did not realize the amount of traffic that came through that cut through. And when they would come off of Stark Road, they would come off very fast because there was signs posted that said emergency vehicles only. And I myself, my driveway backs out onto onto Douglas MacArthur. And I've almost been hit several times. Once they put the gate up, it has been wonderful. The lady that lives across the street from me, she's gonna be 85 this week. She backs out onto the same street. And it is dangerous when that gate is open because the amount of cars that come through there and the speed. And the neighborhood is full of young children, like she said, and they're all out in the street playing because it's a safe neighborhood. And I realize there may be problems with the gate with emergency vehicles, but there's gotta be something that can be done, like she said, maybe a key card, something, to where emergency vehicles can enter, serve the neighborhood, but keep it safe for the children and the people that live there.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emily Dom. I live on Cypress Road. And I'd like to preface this by saying that last year Starkville was awarded the healthiest town in Mississippi. And this year we continue to strive to have healthy citizens. And this has been seen by building sidewalks around town. In the last sidewalk ordinance, it was stated that one of the goals of sidewalks was to promote the safety of pedestrian across movement and protection for the physically able, physically challenged, children, or seniors within appropriate areas of the community. I believe that a neighborhood fits a description of an appropriate area of the community and that it should be protected. And I believe that opening the roads to that will cause a lot of danger. So I have to ask why our great city of Starkville, who strives to promote health, safety of pedestrians, and even more within our town, would want to open a neighborhood to the dangers of highway traffic. Not only would this increase in traffic detract from the beauty of Green Oaks, but it would affect over 400 families who live in the area. Families who walk, jog, bike, and other outdoors activities. I believe this is not in the best interest of Starkville, and when deciding whether or not to open the roads, please review your goals of what the sidewalk ordinance were. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dahl.
Hi, my name is Angie Wubin. My family lives in Green Oaks. We live on Redbud Drive. We're 3 houses down from Stark Road. I have 4 children ages 4 to 12. If you open these roads, you will completely take away my family's ability to ride bikes, to go for walks, even to play in the front yard, because ages 4 to 12, their sports abilities are a work in progress. Those balls inevitably end up in the street. I can't let them play and hope that they don't run out, because it just takes one time for them to run out there, grab a car and get hit by a car coming through. When that happens, and it's not a question of if, we've been through here. We don't have to wonder what will happen. It's already happened in the past. When it happens, that responsibility will lie with this board if you pass this.
Hey, my name's Ricky Hinman. I'll reiterate what she says. I live on Redbud. Redbud has a hill that comes up from Stark Road, and I live at the top of that hill. It's a blind spot, and I got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So we live 20 foot from the road, and balls and bikes and scooters and all that end up in the road with them on it. And if I wanted to live on Stark Road with that traffic, then I'd have bought a house on Stark Road. You know, I don't want to deal with the traffic that's on Stark Road coming down my road. So I'd appreciate it if y'all would not open that road or any of the other roads in Green Oaks, as a matter of fact, to the traffic on Stark Road. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor, before we hear any more comments, would you reiterate for the audience tonight what's before the board at this time? Because obviously I think there's been a change to the agenda and it didn't get communicated to everyone.
The agenda was changed prior to the meeting, and the original item, which was the consideration of approval of a resolution finding that closure of Maple Drive, Douglas MacArthur Drive, and Redbutt Drive are no longer in the best interests of the public, should be open for full public access, has been changed to the consideration of removing the emergency access gate at the gated area of Douglas MacArthur Drive and Stark Road, and to provide signage for emergency and city vehicles only, and to improve and maintain that area for adequate access to the necessary public safety vehicles. Yes, ma'am.
I've lived in Green Oaks since 1961. We were the 8th house built there. And we had all kinds of traffic to come through there, especially on that road we're talking about, opening up. And we do not need that. Before this happened, before we turned it off in 1999, many things were stolen. On my block, where I'm on the corner, we had a bicycle stolen, truck tires were slashed, my car tire was slashed, golf clubs were stolen, toolbox was stolen, and going on. When it was closed off, it didn't happen. Children ride bicycles on streets. Too much traffic could endanger the people who choose to work or ride the bicycles. We do not have sidewalks. Other subdivisions do not have drive-through traffic. Pleasant Acres, Colonial Hills, Plantation Home, Greenbrier, Sherwood Forest. None of these have a drive-through exit like that. That is opening up to all kinds of traffic hazards, especially to children who are riding bicycles and walking on the street, and to adults as well. If they put in this gate, I hope it doesn't revert back to people going through there anytime they choose. Somehow they're going to have to work that out. Thank you.
Ma'am, can I have your name, please?
Could you state your name for the record?
Well, let us quote.
Thank you, Ms. Swope.
I'm Lynn Wampler, and thought about it, I'm one of the oldest people out there. I moved here 30 years ago in that house that I still live in, raised 3 sons. Kept them off of MacArthur because I wanted to raise 3 sons. Was told when I went out there they never would develop any on the other side of Stark Road, so we didn't have to worry about it. And I was with a group in 98. They decided we better worry about it because they were building about 400 apartments across the street. And we did, thankfully, get the alderman at that time to support us in closing off the area. There's an item here that sort of bothers me, and I certainly don't want to interfere with the rights of the public for public roads, but I'm a public too. And I'd like to get out of my driveway later than 7:15 if I have to go to work, which I was unable to do for several years. And I'd like to mow my yard without getting my britches dusted. And I'd like for that little girl that just moved in across the street from me that's 6 years old, and I go out and get out of the middle of the street every morning at 7:30. I'd like for her to have a shot at living. My mother was taken to the hospital with what turned out to be a terminal problem in 2000. At that time, that road was closed. The ambulance could not get in that road at the end of MacArthur. I have no complaint about the speed or how quickly they got there or what kind of care she got. They couldn't have gotten there any quicker, and I don't think they could have made the turn quite as well coming in from that end. I have clocked the distance with my little car then, and I went back and did it again. There's a little difference between coming through town and coming in up Stark Road. But the issue about emergency vehicles, if they want to use it, they ring the little bells and the gates fall through and they come through. You depend upon people who don't want stoplights. They don't want problems with police on 12 for whatever condition they're in. They're going to hit it through Douglas MacArthur. Only 2 stop signs to run. So we'll do what we did before. If you open it again, and we'll have the police, God bless them, sit there and give tickets. Those tickets were never enforced. There was another board, another mayor. But I'm sure some very frustrated policemen still exist on the force. So I personally think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't want an ambulance and then to pick up a child and take off. I'll see it. I live square dab in the middle of Douglas MacArthur. I thank you.
Thank you.
William Grantham, 2105 Douglas MacArthur. It's kind of strange being back here. I've lived in Green Oaks for over 20 years, raised 2 sons on Douglas MacArthur, and they were not allowed to play in the front yard without adult supervision. And Chief Lindley and Assistant Chief Outlaw got numerous calls from me about excessive speeds and stop sign running and that sort of thing. And when we went through this process, as retired firefighter, we looked at all avenues and we ran different tests of emergency response, the distance with red lights and sirens and those sort of things. What I can't find out is what has spearheaded this. I was told earlier today that it was the hospital, and I called Richard Hilton, and he said he had no idea what was going on. So I think as citizens of Green Oaks, we need to know who's spearheading this. Is it a complaint from emergency vehicles? Is it whatever it is? I'm asking to leave that gate up. That gate was put there. That was a compromise that we made, even as we as firefighters. That gate, all you got to do is pull up, hit the siren, it opens up. Now, if it's not maintained, it's not going to work. If it's allowed to grow up, it's not going to work. And that's what happened over the years. It just basically grew up and quit working. I think it was a good compromise for emergency vehicles that wanted to go that route. But now we see a subdivision that has young children on skateboards, bicycles riding around. We see young couples strolling their children from their houses to the park, which we really enjoy, and we appreciate y'all putting a park there in Green Oaks. So I'm asking, and we're asking as Green Oak homeowners to leave that gate in place. Just make sure it's maintained and it will work. Because, I mean, that's what it was there for. So we're asking you to leave the gate in place and leave it as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lewis Jordan. I'll be speaking later this evening, but I wanted to address the proposed amendment to this resolution where you will remove the gate and have Douglas MacArthur Drive accessible only by emergency personnel. This is contradictory. It already is accessible by emergency personnel. There is signage on Stark Road indicating that emergency access is available. There's a gate which some people have said is not functioning. And I have a question for this board, possibly the mayor. Who is responsible for maintaining that gate?
You know, actually, that was a question that we posed this afternoon, and to my knowledge, that responsibility has never been specifically delegated to anybody. But that's a fair question. Oh, maintain the quorum. Go ahead and finish.
So, why not then, if this gate is not functioning, as some people claim, would the city not be liable if emergency access personnel could not get into Green Oaks? Another question to ask is, you are wanting to tear down a gate to build a road, when all that would have to be done is keep the gate fixed and maintained. I wish someone on the board could please explain to me and the rest of these residents here how that is beneficial. Who is going to monitor that cut-through point to ensure that people are not illegally cutting through? Can any of you please make a proposal as to how that will be maintained? A lot of enthusiasm tonight. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, Board, Summer Davis, I live at 2 Prospect Place. My in-laws live at 2413. They weren't able to make it, or 2413 Douglas MacArthur. They weren't able to make it this evening, so I'm actually speaking on their behalf. I'm asking you on their behalf to leave the gate as is. As Alderman Perkins is well aware with the history of this situation, streets were closed and it was opened back up for emergency access, as Dr. Scarborough pointed out, with signage. Traffic kept cutting through, and God bless him, Bill Henry probably almost had 3 coronaries standing in the middle of Douglas MacArthur trying to chase people down. I asked Chief Lindley when I was on the board, how can we monitor it? Going back to the question asked, who's going to monitor it? Well, unless you park somebody there 24/7, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. To fix the problem, we came up with the gate solution. Now, if it needs maintenance, it needs maintenance. But don't tear it down. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't take a sledgehammer where a finishing hammer will work. So on behalf of my in-laws who are elderly, the reason they can't be here is poor health, please don't go in and change the situation as it is now. If you need to fix the gate, fix the gate. I'm asking you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Further citizen comments?
Good evening. My name is David Hoffman. I live at 2405 Douglas MacArthur Drive. I just want to reiterate all the statements that have already been made about the gate. I bought a house at 2405 about 1.5 years ago. I never would have purchased that house if I had known that the gates were potentially going to open. I've got a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old who it's quite nice to be able to go out in the roads with them and not worry about cut-through traffic. I agree with what's already been stated, that there has to be a middle ground solution to this. If the gates are not working, let's work together to fix the gates rather than tear down the gates, because we all know that that is not going to work. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Further citizen comment?
I'm Marnita Henderson, and I too am one of the ones that have lived there forever. And so I was here when we went through this before. I agree with everything Sumner said as a history, but my question is, has there been a malfunction of the gate? How do we know it doesn't work? I mean, has something happened, or did?
To my knowledge, no.
Then how do we know it doesn't work?
Yep. I can neither.
And I mean, why take something down if it still works? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson.
My name is Joel O'Cool, and I live at 508 Meadowview. I moved there in 1998, and I just support everybody who said leave the gate up. In 1998, and before the gate was put up, there were different things that were done to try and slow down vehicles. Emergency vehicles only, there was a sign there, that didn't work. I can attest to the fact that that was a speedway going through there. I mean, cars and trucks used to fly through there. Most of the people who use that just want to go from point A to point B to cut off going around. And it's a dangerous situation. I talked to the mayor at the time, Mayor Rutledge. He was in support of putting that gate up. That gate was finally put up. And if that gate comes down, someone's going to get hurt, because it's just like a speedway through there when that gate is down. So anyhow, those are my observations and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm John Eddie Parker, driving. I live on probably the longest street in the subdivision over on Maple Street. I could see the end of the road down there, what you're talking about, closing the openings up down there. I would like to commend the city of Starkville school bus drivers in that area that come by there at slow rate of speed. There's mothers that bring their kids down there the road, and they look at both ways for traffic, and they bring them across and get them on that bus. And I just want to tell you to be able to talk to the city school bus people, whoever they are, that driving those buses. They did it in my part of the street. They're doing a good job picking up the kids over in that neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further citizen comments?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Board of Alderman, Ward 7. My name is Chris Taylor from Ward 7, and I have an unpaid political announcement. October the 6th is the cutoff for voter registration if you plan on voting in the next election. Also, our Tibet County has redistricted, so if you have moved a new address, you need to go to the courthouse and check your registration, so you'll be able to vote come November the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
And I agree with the citizens.
Further citizen comment?
My name is Dorothy Reichert, and I live at the corner of Ponderosa and Maple Drive, and I understand that that's not up for an option of being open, but when it was open, I know what the traffic was like through there, and I also know what it's like to see people turning into MacArthur Drive when it was supposed to be closed, and it had the signage that said emergency vehicles only, but you could drive down Stark Road going either way, and you could see people turning in and out of there. So, as everybody has said, taking that sign, that gate down is not an option for the people living over there. And although I won't have to experience it, the people over there will have to, and their kids will be at risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tammy Parkerson, and I have a 14 and 16-year-old boys, and they ride bikes and skateboard down the road, and there's lots of young couples walking their babies and their dogs and strolling and everything, and opening those gates would make it a very unsafe area for everyone.
Thank you. Further citizen comment?
I wasn't going to
say anything, but I live on 2401A Douglas MacArthur, which is one of the busiest streets, and I don't want the gate to go away. I raised 2 boys in that house, and when the gate was gone, you can hear them come by. They don't even come to a slow stop at the stop sign. So I'm for the gate staying.
Can you state your name, please, Miss?
Pam Watson, or Pamela Watson.
My name's Jason Gordon. I'm at 2604 Maple, and I just wanted to say that I guess I represent the sort of perspective of a new homeowner. I've been there for about 2 months. I would not have purchased a home in Green Oaks had these roads been open. We looked around Starkville. I remember being attracted to Green Oaks as the realtor took us through, because people walking, all the time, every time we go in, there'd be people walking, kids would be out playing. It's signs of a healthy neighborhood, an active neighborhood, and so it would be a big mistake to open up those roads.
Thank you. Further citizen comment?
My name's Doug Houston. I live with my wife and 4 boys at 2408 Douglas MacArthur, which is right there on that road. We live pretty near that back area. And I'm very opposed to this being opened up. As far as anything being for the betterment of our residents, it would not be. I'm sure we would have to try things like speed bumps and all that to slow people down, which would only mess up everybody in Green Oaks, having to hit the speed bumps because we're trying to slow down the traffic that shouldn't be there in the first place. And I don't know if this is thought about, but on Stark Road, you're going to have people making left turns that are going south, so they're going to hold up all the traffic behind them as people make left turns. As they're all going to be making left turns to try to get in Green Oaks to get through. This is going to cause problems too, so I'm totally against it. We have a nice neighborhood right now. We bought this house about 2 years ago, came back to Starkville, and we definitely would have considered other places. Would have not bought one on this street had we known something like this was coming. This has been closed for a long, long time. So definitely against it, and can't understand any reasons to open this back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments this evening? Any further citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearances. And maintain decorum. I'm sorry. All right, we're now in public appearances. First public appearance this evening is by Dr. Michael Fazio, presenting the annual report on the activities of the Historic Preservation Commission.
You should have a document in your packet that says Starkville Historic Preservation Commission chronology, and I'm here just to, it's informational only. So I'm going to walk you through what's on here, and this will be brief. The Board of Alderman created the Starkville Historic Preservation Commission in May of 2010. We held our first meeting in August 2010, and in October 2010, we voted to pursue the creation of 3 local historic districts, Greensboro Street, Nash Street, Overstreet, and I want to differentiate between these, a local district and a National Register district, which is a federal program. These 3 neighborhoods are already National Register districts. We needed to accomplish a number of things, and generally they cost money. So the first thing we did, December 2010, we applied for CLG status, Certified Local Government status, for the city of Starkville, which enabled us to apply for grant funds from the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. We received CLG status in February of 2011, and then we submitted 2 grant proposals, both of which were approved. One of them matching funds with the city for resurvey of the Overstreet Historic District. All of these districts had been surveyed as part of the National Register process, but this had been done a long time ago. So we had to determine what corrections needed to be made. Overstreet is very large. The other two districts are quite small. So we needed a professional to come in and do the Overstreet district. That was March 2011. Also March 2011, we applied for CLG funds, which were matched by the Starkville Central Neighborhood Foundation to produce what we call standards for Starkville's historic districts. That is the document by which you would oversee changes being made in any one of these neighborhoods. December 2011, Pete Melby, who is a resident of the Nash Street neighborhood and was involved in the original National Register nomination there, resurveyed that neighborhood. I resurveyed the Greensboro Street neighborhood in January 2012. In July 2012, David Preziosi, who is a professional preservation planner, completed the resurvey of the Overstreet School Historic District, so we have proper resurveys of all three. In August 2012, David Preziosi completed the standard for Starkville's historic districts, and we have sent those standards to the city attorney for review. We are working toward holding a public hearing on the creation of these three local districts. Our next step is to hold neighborhood meetings, not hearings, but we'll hold neighborhood meetings in Greensboro Street, Nash Street, and Overstreet. And then we hope that we can hold a public hearing in November of this year. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions or comments for Dr. Fazio?
Did I hear David Preziosi was leaving?
As far as I know, he has left. He is a Texan. He has gone to Dallas, and as I understand it, is going to have a similar position there on a larger scale to the one that he had in Jackson. So we were very fortunate to have him here long enough to complete that work.
Alderman Parker?
As these areas as you have your public hearings, as these things are drawn into a historic preservation, do those residents, any of those residents or homeowners have an option to opt out?
No.
They do not. So
No.
if they're lumped in, they're lumped in.
No, because we're really talking about a neighborhood issue. In other words, if I live in a particular property, what goes on around me affects my property. So it's not one of those things where you opt in or opt out.
Okay. I would have rather seen something where they could opt out.
Yeah, and that is not the proposal that we are making. Yeah.
Further questions or comments for Dr. Fazio? Do we have any further questions or comments for Dr. Fazio? Well, Dr. Fazio, I'll just leave you with a comment. I have monitored through the newspaper mostly the progress of the Historic Preservation Commission since it was created more than 2 years ago, and have been very, very encouraged by the work that you all have been doing, and I think it will serve our community very well. So thank you very much.
Our commission has done a lot of work over a long period of time, and we are certainly no secret because, as you know, every one of our meetings is reported on the front page of the newspaper.
Thank you, Dr.
Keep it from
Fazio.
being a secret.
Our final public appearance this evening is from Dr. Lewis, who will make Dr. Jordan, who will make a presentation on the reopening of now Douglas MacArthur taking the gate down. Dr. Jordan.
Thank you very much. As Dr. Fazio pointed out, I just wanted to remind everybody, I don't know if y'all caught it, but he said we're talking about a neighborhood. What affects one property affects the entire neighborhood. So even though the resolution before the board now has changed, I would still like to address the original resolution. I like to hear myself talk. And also, before I begin, I would like to thank this board. It's hard to separate emotion when it comes to things of personal interest. It is very hard focus only on the facts. Now, I've talked with many of you on the phone this week. Everybody's been professional, courteous, polite, and doing what you do every day. People would rather yell at you than talk to you. So thank you very much. Also, I'd like to thank the citizens of Green Oaks. If you are a resident of the Green Oaks neighborhood, could you stand up or raise your hand? There's a lot of people outside as well. Thank you very much. I'm here today to discuss the resolution currently before this board to open access roads in the Green Oaks community to cut through traffic from Stark Road and discuss why this is not in the best interest of the public. And again, this resolution has been amended, but perhaps the facts laid out now before this board will further prevent any such resolution being brought up again. Access to Stark Road through the Green Oaks neighborhood via Maple, Redbud, and Douglas MacArthur Drives was terminated on October 19, 1999 by unanimous vote of the Board of Alderman. At the time of these road closings, this resolution was found to be in the public interest. That is, in 1999, it was in the public interest to the over 400 homes, families, and residents in the Green Oaks community to prevent high-volume traffic in a residential neighborhood, improve the safety and welfare of Green Oaks residents, improve the quality of life, not only to Green Oaks residents, but residents of neighboring areas by providing safe recreational opportunities for both children and adults. As stated specifically in the October 19, 1999 Board of Alderman minutes, the intersections of Maple Drive and Stark Road and Redbud and Stark Road are hazardous. Not very descriptive, but I think short and to the point. A large volume of traffic along Douglas MacArthur Drive from Stark Road is non-resident through traffic, posing a danger to the safety of the subdivision. The configuration of the streets with numerous stop signs is not conducive to through traffic. Extensive development west of Stark Road imposes a continually increasing burden on the subdivision streets. This was in 1999. The proposed streets to be closed are heavily traveled, but the public benefit from the closure outweighs the public benefit from the use of the streets. So it has been proposed by this board, again, the original resolution, to immediately reopen the streets known as Maple, Redbud, and Douglas MacArthur Drives located in the Green Oaks subdivision to public access from Stark Road. This proposal claims, and I'm quoting, that such an action serves a greater public need to provide for public safety agencies access for emergencies and a change of conditions, reducing the transient traffic concerns. So before I address the reasons given by this board for reopening the roads to public access, I would like to remind you that these roads were closed in 1999 in the interest of the public by a unanimous vote from the Board of Alderman. And that one of those board members here today who voted in 1999 is currently on the board now. How then has this public interest been eroded since 1999? I believe you will find that the reasons put forth by this board is lacking in both substance and fact. And the specific reasons for this proposal are: whereas since the closing of the roads in 1999, there have developed alternative routes of travel from the opening of the Highway 25 and Highway 82 bypass for easterly travel to Mississippi State University. While several alternate routes of travel are provided to Mississippi State University, does not mean that these routes are being utilized by the public. This board has presented no data to justify this claim, including road surveys prepared by the Mississippi Department of Transportation and/or surveys conducted within the residential communities located on Stark Road as the preferred driving routes. Whereas, Clause 2, Fact 2. The opening of the bypass provide for a reduction in travel through the neighborhoods previously impacted, allowing for a change in circumstances and conditions that created the original need. These access roads were closed in 1999 before the completion of construction of over 500 family homes, condominiums, and apartments. On June 12, 2007, a request before the City of Starkville Planning and Zoning Commission was brought forth to consider a zoning classification of property located on Stark Road. This information, which is publicly available on the City of Starkville website, contained a table prepared by the Mississippi Department of Transportation specifying the average daily trips per year on Stark Road. According to this table, there has been a steady annual increase in the volume of traffic on Stark Road since the closings in 1999. The number of average daily trips increased from 9,300 in 1999 to 14,000 in 2006. This is over a 50% increase in daily trips per year on Stark Road. The Highway 25 bypass was opened in 2003, and since that time, there still continued to be an annual increase in the usage of Stark Road, according to information provided by the Mississippi Department of Transportation in the June 12, 2007 zoning and planning minutes. As stated in the City of Starkville Planning and Zoning Commission notes, the increase in traffic on Stark Road would indicate why the Green Oaks neighborhood petitioned the Board of Alderman to close off Douglas MacArthur, Redbud, and Maple Drives in October of 1999 due to the increasing amount of cut-through traffic. Finding of fact, that was the verbiage that was used. Finding of fact 3. This change in conditions and opportunities for easterly travel has resulted in reduced transient need for use of previously highly traveled streets. Again, according to the data from the Mississippi Department of Transportation, there has been an increase in the number of trips on Stark Road since 1999. This board believes that since alternate routes exist, there should be a decrease in cut-through traffic. However, the data presented by MDOT disputes this claim. Further, this board has provided no data or evidence to support their conclusion that these alternative routes are being utilized. Finding of fact 4. Closing all of the open access points to the west has resulted in a continued hardship for public safety providers in providing timely and potentially critical life-saving emergency service to the residents of Green Oaks subdivision. And I think this is to the point we're at right now. There has not been any proof of hardship for public safety providers presented by this board. Currently, there are 3 open access routes for public safety providers to enter Green Oaks. Maple Drive from the south, Pin Oak and Douglas MacArthur drives from the east. Aside from these open access routes, an emergency personnel access gate is located at the intersection of Douglas MacArthur Drive and Stark Road, which allows for emergency responders to access the western and northerly areas of Green Oaks. So there seems to be some concern now due to this amended resolution that removal of the gate is now in the public interest. There also seems to be that the removal of the gate is in the public interest because the gate doesn't function. However, no one on this board can tell me who is responsible for maintaining the gate. The city is responsible for maintaining Stark Road. The city is responsible for maintaining Douglas MacArthur. Maybe there's about 65 feet in between. I'd like to buy that property if nobody knows who owns it. How can this board say that it is in the best interest? Y'all would rather spend money to build a road and then spend a little change to fix a gate. Finding of fact 5. Whereas it is in the city's best interest to provide multiple access points to any area of concentrated housing ingress and egress for the tax-paying citizens of the city as a whole. Concentrated housing, residential. Why is it in the city's best interest as a whole to allow multiple access points to concentrated residential housing areas? How will this access be beneficial to Starkville? Will this access generate more revenue for both the city of Starkville and its businesses? If anything, reopening these roads will cost the tax-paying citizens of Starkville more money. These 3 access points are not functional roads. The asphalt at these locations has been removed, and construction will be required to bring these roads up to code. Finding of fact 6. Whereas have only 3 points of entry and departure for over 400 residences does not serve the neighborhood in the most effective manner. Once again, this board is relying on conjecture rather than facts and or the opinion of the Green Oaks residents. Many of the residents here tonight are the same residents that petitioned the board to close these access roads in 1999. knowingly limiting points of entry and exit. Could this board please provide us with a public opinion poll of the residents of Green Oaks as to whether they believe this statement to be true? And I can tell you by the people that have spoke here tonight, I don't think you're going to find that that is true. Also, this board has not presented any safe, constructive alternatives to the current resolution, including placement of speed bumps on the street to curb potential speeding, street lights needing to be installed to ensure safe left-hand turns onto the high-speed 2-lane Stark Road, and construction of sidewalks to prevent danger to both school children and recreationalists. Should the vote be decided to open these access roads, which, let's just say, open Douglas MacArthur, will those board members approving this resolution also acknowledge both personal liability and accountability for the inevitable accident that will occur from someone illegally cutting through Douglas MacArthur Road? In summary, it seems contradictory that opening these roads now is in the best public interest, when having these roads closed in 1999 was deemed in the public interest. Contrary to the information I've shared with you this evening, this board has not conclusively demonstrated how any of their purported reasons for opening these streets will be beneficial to any citizen. This board has not considered how their decision will negatively impact the residents of the Green Oaks community. This resolution is not beneficial to the citizens of Starkville. This resolution will increase traffic in the Green Oaks neighborhood due to the increase in trips on Stark Road as detailed by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. In this case now, we might be facing incidences of people illegally cutting through an emergency access route. How will that be maintained and who will prevent that? This will also decrease the quality of life by removing recreational opportunities within the neighborhood, potentially decrease property value of Green Oak residents, and cost the tax-paying citizens of Starkville money to bring the closed roads up to code and install appropriate safety measures, including street lights, speed bumps, and sidewalks. As publicly elected officials, it is this board's responsibility to make informed decisions based on facts and the voice of the people, not personal opinions and conjecture. This board has presented no conclusive evidence that reopening these roads, including now Douglas MacArthur only, is in the best public interest. Thank you for your time.
And are there any questions or comments for Dr. Jordan from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from members of the board? Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
That will conclude our public appearances this evening, and will take us to our next matter, which is a public hearing on the 2013 municipal budget. The full presentation on this budget was made at our last meeting, and just a few highlights quickly of the budget. This budget holds the city's millage or tax rate on property taxes flat, so it does not change the tax rate for the city. It has relatively flat revenues and relatively flat expenditures. At this time, I'll open the floor for comments from citizens. Any citizen wishing to make comments on our budget may do so by coming forward. You'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes, and I do ask that you state your name for the record at the outset. Comments on the budget? Do we have any comments on the budget this evening?
My name is Alvin County Ward 7. This budget, that if y'all pass this budget, we won't get surprised next year that taxes and whatnot goes up. And we be fair with us that with this budget, that the people that's on fixed incomes and whatnot can live and be happy.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further comments on the budget? Do we have any further comments on the budget? Any further comments from the public on the budget? Seeing none, do we have any comments from the members of the board on the budget? Any comments from the members of the board on the budget?
I wish people were as passionate about that as they are other issues. So.
Any further comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, that will conclude our public hearing on the budget, and that will carry us to board business. Your board agenda has been reordered to place the consideration of removing the emergency access gate located at the gated area of Douglas MacArthur Drive and Stark Road, and to provide signage for emergency and city vehicles only, and to improve and maintain that area for adequate access to necessary public safety vehicles. Prior to opening the floor for general board discussion on this matter, I have some comments of my own that I'm going to make. I have fielded quite a number of phone calls over the past several days and have been asked by numerous citizens from the impacted area as to why this has come forward now. And my answer has been, I don't know. I am perplexed as to why this has come forward. And I guess the reason I am perplexed is there are a couple of things to my knowledge that specifically have not happened. First of all, there's been no event which calls into question whether the emergency access gate on Douglas MacArthur Drive is functioning properly. Second, nothing has happened that leads me to believe, were the gate taken away, the situation would be any different than it was a decade ago when there was no gate there. The reason the gate was placed there by a previous board was because it was unenforceable to maintain that street as an emergency access only entrance without a gate. Specifically, nothing has occurred to make me think if we were to remove that gate that we would not have the same enforceability problem that led us to put the gate there in the first place. Now, some questions have arisen throughout the course of this evening as to whether there is a problem with the functioning of the gate. I will be honest with you, as I have stated previously, I do not know how the gate is functioning right now. But I will also acknowledge, as mayor of this city, I have a responsibility, and the buck stops with me, to make sure if we've got a gate there that is intended to make sure emergency access is on Stark Road, it's my responsibility to make sure that it does function. And I will assure the members of this board and the public that if that gate remains there, you can come to me if there's an issue with the gate functioning. I would propose that as the solution going forward to make sure that street it remains not a thoroughfare, but also remains available for emergency access. Furthermore, in the event that this motion does pass tonight, I am prepared to and do intend to veto the matter. So this will serve as my notice of intent to veto should this matter pass. Now, discussion from the members of the board.
Mayor, I too have fielded a lot of phone calls about this, and I'd like to speak to a few of the things that have been brought up tonight. I'd like to say that we are not proposing opening those 3 streets any longer. Alderman Perkins modified his proposal. The proposal is to take the gate down, to improve the turn so that emergency vehicles can make that turn there, and there's no proposal to pave that road or to make it any more than what is there now, other than improving that turn from Stark Road. Currently, as Dr. Jordan mentioned, there is not a functional connection between Douglas MacArthur and Stark Road in the sense of everyday traffic. It is functional in order to be able to get an emergency vehicle through, but as a driver, as somebody in a small car, I would not attempt to go past the paved section of Douglas MacArthur, nor would I attempt turn off of Stark Road onto Douglas MacArthur, given the current state of the road, gate or no gate. That gate's not going to slow me down or speed me up. I would like to say that there has been some discussion of entrances into the neighborhood, and that there are multiple entrances, I'm terrible with directions, so bear with me here. There have been, all of the entrances into Green Oaks are off of Highway 12 or from Whitfield. The western side of Green Oaks is not accessible except through this emergency entrance that's at Douglas MacArthur. I think today, when I was driving over to take a look at the state of that connection between Douglas MacArthur and Stark Road, I saw a very compelling reason why you might want an additional access point. Somebody on Highway 12, and Chief Lindley may know who this was by now, somebody managed to launch themselves off of Highway 12 and into a monument on the side of the road there, effectively backing up traffic for quite some distance. And had that happened closer to Green Oaks, could have effectively blocked emergency traffic getting into the neighborhood from Highway 12. And the last thing that I want to say is that someone earlier made the mention that other neighborhoods don't have these drive-through traffic situations. I live in Long Meadow subdivision, which is bounded on one side. We have an entrance out onto Highway 12, like Green Oaks, and at Willow Drive there at the railroad track, and bounded on the other side by Louisville Street, Old Highway 25 South. There are three entrances into the neighborhood off of Louisville Street. We do get some cut-through traffic. I will absolutely not deny that. There are people who work on Willow Drive or who work in the area, people who are at Starkville High School who will cut through the neighborhood. It does happen. But mine is also a vibrant neighborhood like Green Oaks, where people walk in the streets, where people push babies in baby strollers, where children ride bikes. Those things happen even though we have multiple access points into our neighborhood. As I mentioned, my mother passed away a couple of weeks ago, and her dog has come to live with us. And as a result, I'm now walking quite a bit more than I had been in my neighborhood. There are times a day when there's an uptick in traffic, morning and afternoon, much like y'all have in Green Oaks. But it is just a part of living in a neighborhood that we do have that traffic. There's every possibility that the dog and I will both be hit by a car tomorrow. It's very possible. But those things happen with or without multiple entrances. People speed in neighborhoods with or without multiple entrances. Those kind of things happen. But there are other neighborhoods that have multiple entrances and do have the drive-through that we're talking about tonight. The difference between Long Meadow and Green Oaks is that anybody can access Long Meadow through those public streets. What we're talking about in Green Oaks would really, while anybody could access it, it's not a functional road in any, that short section of road is not a functional road in the sense of everyday traffic. And yes, I'm sure somebody will drive through there. It's going to happen. But I don't see it becoming a major thoroughfare for people that are trying to avoid getting onto Highway 12 or going east-west. Did I get my directions right? Going east-west and going through Green Oaks. So having said all that, I won't steal Alderman Perkins' thunder. I will just move approval and let us see where we wind up.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to approve of removing the emergency access gate at the gated area of Douglas MacArthur Drive and Stark Road and to provide signage for emergency and city vehicles only, and to improve and maintain that area for adequate access to the necessary public safety vehicles. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Perkins. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the matter?
I think I've spoken.
Discussion. Alderman
I've got a
Davis.
question. It's my understanding that through the process of road closure, that those rights of way reverted to ownership of adjacent property owners. So if that right of way has been relinquished, then what right do we have to change and or even maintain equipment on that section of closed road at this point?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for yielding the floor to me. Let me make a few preliminary comments. I'm going to answer the gentleman's question from Ward 5. I've been on this board for 19.2 years. The gentleman, Dr. Jordan, mentioned that there is one alderman at the table who was here on the 19th day of October 1999, and that alderman is Alderman Roy A. Perkins. I can clearly recall the night in question when this matter became before the board. The minutes clearly reflect that Alderman Perkins voted in the affirmative for this matter. I would like for you to be duly informed that I had reservations that night, and I reluctantly voted for the closure of the streets. I do feel that that vote was in error. One of the main things that came across to us back on the 19th of October 1999 that there would be extensive traffic coming through Green Oaks from a development that had not occurred to the western end of the Green Oaks location. And I reviewed the minutes through that time period in question, and one of the members who was in favor of the streets remaining open indicated that that was mere speculation. I have had concerns about my vote that was taken on October 19, 1999, and that is clearly reflected in the minutes. There were 3 subsequent votes that were taken after October 19, 1999. There was a vote taken on January 4th of 2000 that would give the Mayor Rutledge, he was a 2-term mayor, that was the 1997 to 2001 term, that would give Mayor Rutledge the authority to proceed further with the closure of those roads. That was January 4th of 2000 after the initial vote on October 1999. Alderman Perkins voted nay because I had realized that the yay vote was the wrong vote to take. To further evidence that I was not comfortable with the vote that was taken on October 19, 1999, on the next vote that was taken at the then board during my 2nd term, and this is my 5th term now, on the 15th day of February of 2000, Alderman Perkins in a packed house, the crowd was no less than this. I offered a motion to reopen all 3 streets. It's in the minutes. We speak through our minutes. I offered a motion to reopen Redbud, Maple, and Douglas MacArthur. And my motion was so emphatic that it indicated that I wanted those roads to be open by high noon, 12 noon on the next day. And that's in the minutes. You go to the minutes, you'll find it. It was to ask that the roads be open on the 16th day of February of 2000, and that all barricades be removed therefrom. Now that motion died for a lack of second. Nevertheless, on March the 21st of 2000, there was another vote that was taken that was to further the proceedings with the closure of the 3 roads that are in question. Alderman Perkins is likewise recorded in the minutes. That's how we speak through our minutes. It's recorded as nay. So given the history of this, and of course the matter is not before us tonight, to, at this time, and the motion is not to reopen, Maple, Redbud, and Douglas MacArthur. The motion before us tonight is to remove the emergency gate at Douglas MacArthur, to improve the emergency access, and to improve the roadway. Now, I want to be clear for the public, and this is going to answer the gentleman from 5 question. There's nothing that reverts back. There's no issue or reversionary here. And if I'm incorrect, the city attorney, I'm sure he's will stand ready to correct me. This motion does not reopen Douglas MacArthur Road. The only thing that this motion does is it improves the emergency access. There's nothing about opening the road, so you have no reversionary issue here. There's no legal issue. This board is clearly within its legal rights based on my legal opinion. Now, we can improve the emergency access, and of course, and I've seen correspondence, documentation from public safety employees that indicates that that improving emergency access will allow to have greater access to Green Oaks residents for any emergency situation. It is my opinion that this would promote the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of that area by improving the access. With regard to the access at this location, the board, again, is not opening the road. As the vice mayor said earlier, that there are other roads, and if we can have Mr. Mayor make sure I have some decorum here now. And with regard to the other areas of this city, there are many places throughout this city where there's cut through other neighborhoods, and so, even with Hospital Road, people come through all the time off of that, but we're not trying to provide that. This is just about keeping the road closed, but it will be only available for emergency access. And the minutes are clear. I mean, we're not violating our minutes. If you read the minutes from October the 19th, 1999, together with all the comments approved in the minutes on January 4th, 1999, January 4th of 2000, February the 15th of 2000, March 21 of 2000, it is very clear in the minutes that the board designated Douglas MacArthur as an emergency access. And also, it has been brought to me over time that there's been a sporadic problem with the operation of the gate at that location, and by supporting this motion, what it does is it removes, based on my legal opinion, any potential liability that may exist or that may arise with respect to any failure of any emergency personnel to be able to access Green Oak subdivision from the western entrance off of Stark Road for emergency purposes. So I want, Mr. Attorney, I'm making sure that the record is clear here tonight that this motion is not opening any road. It does not open Redbud, it does not open Maple, and this motion does not open Douglas MacArthur. And of course, and just let me elaborate on this. I wasn't intending to say this, but I think I must say it. The mayor mentioned, in all due respect to the mayor, he mentioned that has given his intent to veto, and I've heard that through the years from many mayors, but that does not preclude me from doing my job as an alderman. And of course, and there have been other key issues that have arisen during the course of this term and this administration, where the mayor has indicated that he would not get involved in a particular key issue because he will leave that as a board matter. And you know, and I've said all the time that I wish we could get some consistency here at City Hall on these matters. But nevertheless, I do not fundamentally believe that any neighborhood should be isolated in such a manner. And let me go on to say, I know we're not talking about city streets, but let me just say that these streets are paid by taxpayers' dollars, and it's not in the best interest to close any street. That's why I did everything I could to reverse my decision. It's not good public policy. Now, let me go ahead and add this. This is not before us tonight. We hear about the walking of the dogs. We hear about the streets. All of the neighborhood.
Maintain the quorum.
Walking of the dogs, the children and others, and for everything that's been said, Mr. Mayor and Board, but for all the things, don't want to misinterpret or misquote anyone, but the children's safety, the health, safety, and welfare, but all of the communities are important. All of the neighborhoods are important. You know, it's bad public policy to close any street, and that's just not in the best interest. You know, people cut through many areas. People cut through Hospital Road. People walk the children, adults, senior citizens, Old West Point Road, the Cotton District, throughout all the northern, the southern, the eastern, and the western end of the city. You know, we just have to take those measures. So I thought I would address that. So it clearly demonstrates that this is a good public safety motion. This motion is one that, you know, I think that we can clearly do within our police powers. And I am, you know, confident saying that Mr. Attorney, that the 10th Amendment to the Constitution gives us, this board, the powers to promote the health, safety, and welfare of this city. So I want to say in closing that I'm asking the board to let's pass this thing, this motion on a strong vote, and if the mayor, you know, elects in his own will and his announcement tonight that he's going to veto it, and if he does veto it, Ms. Sproul, if this matter passes tonight, then I'm requesting for you to put it on the agenda at the next meeting on the 26th of September of 2012, and you can put it on the agenda as discussion and consideration or override of the mayor's veto, since he's going to announce that. So I'm not intimidated, because when I was elected here, and I've been doing that for 19.2 years, and you know, I'm just going to talk straight, no disrespect to anybody, but you know, but we need to support this motion. It's a good public measure, and Mr. Gentleman from 5. There's no reversionary issue. Mr. Attorney, if I speak out of turn, I'm not trying to advise the board, but since I have the floor, if I'm incorrect in anything that I say, Mr. Attorney, you correct me. But this is not about closing a street. This motion is just about improving the emergency access. And Mr. Mayor, with all that being said, I yield the floor.
Mr. Latimer.
Alderman Dumas, I agree with Alderman Perkins on the point that there's no reversionary interest at issue tonight specifically. You're correct on the law generally that when the streets were closed over the course of this board's deliberations from October 1999 through March of 2000, that when final closure occurred, the ownership of the closed portions of the street did revert to the abutting landowners. However, as a part of that closure, the board expressly reserved the right to provide emergency vehicle access at Douglas MacArthur, and they reserved that right through the city's full jurisdiction over its streets. That's Mississippi Code Section 2137.3, and the general police powers to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of 21-19-15. So my opinion is, so long as the board is operating tonight in the very narrowly tailored context of providing emergency vehicle access, then it has discretion within those confines.
Do we maintain an easement for that access? Because if the road was closed, so is it true in fact that Douglas MacArthur was actually closed?
Yes.
So the entire right-of-way then would have had to revert to some adjacent property owner, because through law, the law would revert from center line to adjacent property owner, correct?
Correct. Now, there's an issue of how much right-of-way we have off of Stark Road. City staff has advised that we have up to 50 feet off of the center line from Stark Road. How far that goes into the closed portion of Douglas MacArthur, I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, may we recognize?
You may.
Mr. Attorney, let me make sure that you're crystal clear on the record while the record is open. The board is clearly within its legal rights to improve the emergency access as this motion reflects in its current status.
I agree.
And you understand that this motion does not close the road. Is that right, Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, that's a key point. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Carver.
I've also got a couple findings of fact. I'm just sitting here, thank you, first of all, backing up and thank everybody for coming out, and thank you for all the phone calls and the visits, and thank you to the mayor and the Board of Alderman for taking them and listening. And again, tonight, it's like some of the points I've listened to and researched of what is the reason. Nobody said yet what the real reason is this, and what is it public safety? No, that's not true. Is it because the gates don't work? No, that's not true. We haven't proven any of that tonight, so all that's hearsay to this point. Tonight you also got the opportunity, because this has a history, to hear people who went through this 10 years ago. We've heard people that have got injured on bicycles, hit on bicycles, injured walking. I run in Green Oaks a lot. I know already it's a situation we've dealt with, some speed and things like this. I don't want to see it turn into a worse situation. It would be a thoroughfare. Alderman Perkins has proposed that this would be an alternate to Highway 12, and that's exactly what it would be, a Highway 12 alternate. It would be another, regardless of what they say, it's going to be your taxpayer dollars that pay to get this re-gravelled, repaved. It's a gravel situation now and will be repaved in the future. You'll see that, mark my words on it. So what's changed since October 19th, 1999, when Alderman Perkins and the board decided it was too dangerous to have thoroughfare traffic through there? About 450 to 480 more homes have been built west of that. So is that a situation we should look at? Yes. If it was dangerous enough in 1999, do you think it's more dangerous with almost 500 more homes being added? Yes. We found the solution to this problem 13 years ago. I'm glad it has a history. I'm glad we can learn from it. This board likes to sit back and throw around the words quality of life. And what is quality of life? Is it a safe residential area where kids can play? Where my son and I can get out and walk? Yes. It would be detrimental to the character of this neighborhood. I remember back in high school going and visiting with Chief Grantham's sons, and just remember seeing the traffic through there. Remember in high school seeing the traffic in there. If the gate needs to be fixed, and it hadn't been proven right or wrong yet, but if it needs to be fixed, let's fix it. I'll stand behind it. I think anybody on this board would stand behind it. It's 468 houses, I know. I've walked every one of them. Thank you to Mayor Wiseman. He stepped up about 2 years ago and took the lead on this project, and it was in need of some maintenance, and he stepped up and he got it done, so thank you for that. About 2 years ago, and getting these areas cleaned up and getting them where emergency vehicles could fit back through there. Well, I've got Alderman Davis. I want to thank him for Patriots Park and what's happened out there. He took a blighted area and turned it into a green space. Through a Safe Route to School grant, you now have got a sidewalk that connects that whole almost 500 houses into downtown safely. I trust letting kids leave their house and walk all the way to Armstrong Middle School. Putting another 3,000 cars a day on the street's not going to help. The amazing thing is that the individuals that spoke tonight that are the closest to Stark Road and that this would be easiest for them are the ones that are most opposed to it. That ought to be sending out a red flag. The ones that could get out and in the quickest are the ones that don't mind driving all the way around to get to the hospital or to town. And last but not least, if these were your constituents, I hope that you would have a change of heart. If this many people from your ward showed up, I think that you should have a change of heart. Alderman Sistrunk spoke about Longmeadow and choosing to live there. She chose to live there for a reason. She knew where she was moving. People chose to live in Green Oaks, as they said, for a reason. They chose to live there because the streets were closed. I'm going to do what Alderman Perkins always said and call a spade a spade. This is a slap in the face to the 400-plus homeowners. I want you to sit back, think about it, think about what you've heard. They've spoken, and I hope you listen. Thank you.
Further discussion. Alderman Parker.
I would echo the same things, excuse me, that Alderman Carver has said. I'm just confused and dumbfounded as to why this issue came up. I mean, this board does a good enough job creating its own conflict rather than creating something that's going to get, I mean, there's just absolutely no reason. I mean, I've been on the board 3.5 years. We have seen 0 cases of people coming to us, emergency hospital. Nobody's come to us and said we can't get in the neighborhood. There's a problem. There's an issue. I may think differently about it if we had continually people coming to us and asking us to open this back up. But hey, I don't understand why it came up, why we should be. The city 13 years ago spent money to close the roads. They spent money to create new driveway. I mean, we spent a lot of money to fix it back then. I think the findings of fact, Alderman Carver made a great point in that back then those were proposed developments that were on the west side, I guess the west side. That they're now developments now. There are now 500 more homes over there. So if it was a finding of fact 13 years ago, it would absolutely be more so now because there's a tremendous amount of homes over there. Again, I don't know why this would come up before the board at this point, and I'm extremely opposed to it at this point. I would hope that, as Alderman Carver said, that we all have our own issues in our individual wards, and if this is kind of Alderman Carver's, this is his ward, and I think we see all the residents here that are extremely opposed to it, and I don't know why somebody would want to come in, and it just serves no interest to me at all as to why this would be brought up at this point.
Alderman Carver.
3 more points. The sidewalk ordinance, which I didn't vote for, but it tailored to not spend, it wasn't economically feasible to put sidewalks in every residential area, and that was for a reason. It's because it's not a point in having sidewalks in residential areas like Green Oak. So what that does is, and you see it, I want to encourage everybody on this board to go down there and ride around and see the young children, see the young mothers and fathers and the older individuals that are out walking it every night, and just, I mean, think if that was your neighborhood, if you'd want, again, quality of life. Each and every neighborhood is different, but that neighborhood has a lot of pedestrian-friendly individuals that like to utilize that sidewalk and get to downtown. They like to walk in the neighborhood. And if something, a lady said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think that was an excellent comment. What you see tonight, I think that it came in wanting all 3 opened. That's what happened until he knew that all of you were alerted, and that he knew there'd be a big crowd. So he tried to do what most people do in local government and find a compromise, but I just don't think that's a good compromise. We find compromises every day, but I just don't think that's a good one. And last, I heard that just if we're in our legal right to do something, I don't think just because if you can find a way to justify being in a legal right, I don't think you have to do it. Just because we can legally do something, is it the right thing or the morally right thing? It's not. So thank you, Mayor. I yield the floor.
Further discussion. Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman Parker. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. Let's not lose sight of, for whatever reason it's here, and for whatever reason this is before us tonight, let's not lose sight of what's being proposed. We are not proposing to reopen or repave Douglas MacArthur Drive. To reopen it would require a very extensive process, so we are not doing that. We are not proposing that that anything be repaved or that it be significantly more accessible to traffic. We are proposing making sure that emergency exit is available and can be accessed by city vehicles. And I doubt that there are going to be 3,000 cars a day going through this narrow, graveled area that has concrete curbs sort of through the middle of it in some sections. I don't know if y'all went out and looked today or not, but it would be available to emergency vehicles. It is in no way going to make that road reopened in the sense that you will see the level of increased vehicular traffic that's being tossed around tonight. Green Oaks, like some of the other neighborhoods that aren't accessible except through specific areas, or one good, well-placed accident away from being able to be accessed. One of those 3 roads has trees that have grown back up in it. We've had to clean out another one so that it could be potentially accessible, but it has bollards up. Taking this gate down and making sure that this is open is a change, yes, but one that's based in wanting to be sure that we have, for me, it's based in wanting to be sure that you have access to that neighborhood from another direction other than Highway 12.
Alderman Carter.
What does it take for, if you have an entire group or an entire neighborhood show up, what would it take to change your guys' point of view on something? Does it take an entire body of people coming in, a population to come in and sit there and ask you to do something that, that it's gonna come a day when we're all gonna be on that side of the table and you're gonna want things done, and people come and ask you as an elected local official, ask you to help them out, ask you to keep their neighborhood safe. What does it take? Does it take an entire neighborhood coming in here? I probably got another 60 people that couldn't be here. They were older ladies and gentlemen that just said, please represent me, and that's what we're doing tonight. What does it take? Does it take them coming and begging and pleading? We don't even want to talk about the budget hearing tonight. People were more interested in this than they are in the budget hearing. And yet you just disregard them and say, oh, okay, let's not worry about it. They're more worried about this than they're worried about the budget process with the city start.
And that says.
And you don't even, I got the floor.
I'm sorry.
And you don't even give them the time of day. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, might be recognized.
You may.
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, all due respect to the gentleman from Warren, I want to address one issue. Basically, he just made a reference that the mere fact that there are a lot of residents from a particular area necessitates and mandates that are matters adopted in the affirmative. And of course, we've had matters throughout the year, throughout the different wards where, that has not been the case. The board looks at these matters and make a decision on things that are before us. So there's no mandate, there's no policy, there's no rule that controls this board, or that this board alludes to say just because we have 100 people to one, then that's what we have to do. That's been demonstrated throughout this term. So I don't think there's no merit to that argument about the number of people showing up. So I just want to make sure that as the Alderwoman from Ward 2 says, let's not lose sight of the issue at hand. We need to go ahead and support this motion. Hopefully we can get if we cannot get a 7-0, at least a super majority vote of at least 5 here, and improve the emergency access. That's what this motion is designed to do. The road will not be open. The road will remain closed. And so I encourage each and every one of my colleagues to support this motion. And Mr. Mayor, I'm going to call for a vote.
All right, the question has been called. Is there any objection
Let's
to
have one
voting
more.
at this
Let's
time?
have one more point.
Go ahead. I yield to him if you want to.
Alderman
Just
Parker.
one more point. And if I heard correctly, that whenever this was done in 1999, it was closed with no barricade, and the board came back after the fact and put the gate up. So apparently there was a reason they had to come back and put the gate back up, because there was still continual traffic. So that point has already kind of been hashed out by the previous board. They tried it one way, it didn't work, so they put the gate up. And I agree that we need to find out. We have to make sure that the gate works properly, whoever responsibility that is. I yield the floor.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll now move into a roll call vote on Alderman Sistrup's motion. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
No.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Parker.
Nay.
Alderman Corey.
Yay.
Alderman Dumas.
Abstain.
Alderman Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Abstain.
That's 3 yeas. 3 yeas. Abstentions count with the yeas. So by a vote of 3 in favor, 2 against, with 2 abstentions, this measure passes. And just a little housekeeping, abstentions count with the majority. So in that case, well, the abstention doesn't count as a vote either way, because the 2 members that the 2 members that abstained did not express a will for either side. So when you have that type of outcome, then it's a 3-2 majority.
Question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Now, if there is if there is, as you indicated, a veto, and that action comes back before this board, those members that abstained can still abstain, or will they have to vote?
I'm going to get the city attorney to clarify, but my understanding is, with respect to overriding a veto, there's an absolute rule of 5 votes in the affirmative.
2/3, that's correct, of all of the aldermen, not the aldermen seated and not the aldermen just voting. So of all of them.
We get paid very little money to be up here, but we do get paid to vote, one way or the other. That's just my opinion.
All right, maintain the quorum. Alderman Carver?
So for legal clarification, if you do veto and we come back and vote on that, will the people that abstain, they won't have a vote on that, will they?
No, the motion to override is a fresh motion. And at that point in time, and city attorney, please do correct me if I'm not interpreting this correctly, there is a threshold of 5 votes in the affirmative that must be met for the override of the veto. So any combination of votes in the affirmative and abstentions is not as relevant in the context of the override. There's the requirement for 5 votes in the affirmative.
Real simple, gotta get 5 votes.
To override.
To override.
I got you. Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I would suggest we take a brief recess. Is there any objection to recessing? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll stand in recess.
So that's a no.
Why y'all doing on Wednesday? The last Wednesday this month. The 26th.
Meeting will now come back to order.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda is a report from the city attorney on the use of public property for special events and any related issues.
I was tasked by the board to research
Mayor.
these issues.
May I be recognized for you?
You may.
We got to give the gentleman who's on a break time to get in. I mean, I know we're trying to get out of here, but give them just a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just give them a minute to get back out here.
Did you see Corey out there?
He was walking into your office.
They know we started back up. Let him know we're ready to go.
Chantel's gonna pick out.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
You like your iPad? You like that?
I do. Look at my packet. No, I got it. They finally closed it for the year. Still open?
That's not the only issue.
Oh, this is great. Is it a orange? You can do that.
All right, now the city attorney is going to give us his report on special events.
I was asked by the board to research the legalities surrounding Junior Auxiliary's request to close off certain portions of the streets downtown for Chili Fest and to charge entry for citizens on those streets for Chili Fest and also to research potential liability the city could incur based on that arrangement. From a liability standpoint, the general law controls, which is that a city must take reasonable steps to make its streets reasonably safe for someone exercising due care. And the cases that construe that say that that is an absolute question of fact for the jury if that issue is litigated based on the particular facts of a given case. And that would also apply to festivals or any kind of street closures for that reason. Starkville has broad powers under Code Section 2137.3 to close its streets. It has full jurisdiction in that area. And it also has broad powers under the police power statute of 2119.15. And specifically, there's an AG opinion called Hedgeland from June 6th of 2002 that says the city may temporarily close streets for a festival under the police power. The lone issue was whether JA could charge a fee for people entering those closed streets. I searched for any specific statutory, case law, or AG authority that would give them that right, and I can't find anything. I've also read the home rule statute, which would be the only thing else that could control in the absence of that specific authority, and I don't think the home rule statute provides the authority for JA to do that. So my position legally is that I've got some legal concerns with JA's attempt to charge for entry into the closed streets. Otherwise, I think we would be fine legally with what they're proposing to do.
All right, and provided there are no questions, the clerk actually just notified me I skipped a very important matter on the agenda. So I'm going to backtrack to the consideration of a resolution setting the tax levy.
Mr. Mayor, may I recognize?
You may.
We have a matter before us, don't we?
Sure, and if you have questions, by all means ask them.
Okay. All right. I thought that we was at the agenda item for, okay, go ahead. I'm
We
sorry.
were, and I was just transitioning back
Got
to
it.
the one
Go
I
ahead.
missed.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. The consideration of a resolution setting tax levy for the city of Starkville at 20 mills for the fiscal year 2013 in accordance with the requirements of Mississippi Code 213345. Discussion.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to approve of a resolution setting the tax levy for the city of Starkville at 20 mills for fiscal year 2013 in accordance with the requirements of Mississippi Code annotated 21-33-45. Alderman Dumas, that's your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
A discussion. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the authorization of a special event request by Starkville Junior Auxiliary. Discussion.
Say move.
Alderman Dumas.
I've got one issue. I've talked to JA and they are okay with waiving the idea that they would close the street and charge with the comments from the city attorney. They've got other ways to go through their fundraising opportunities.
Let me just close by saying,
So with
as
that,
we think about the policy.
So with that, I'd like to.
You said you're not going to charge.
Yeah, they're not going to charge. So it'll be a free to the public event.
Okay.
I'll go along with it. Yeah. So so with that, I'll make the motion to approve this matter. With the fact that there will be no charging to access the event.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to authorize a special event request by Starkville Junior Auxiliary for street closing and in-kind services for the 2012 Junior Auxiliary Chili Fest scheduled for Friday, October.
Yeah, Alderman Carver already made the motion.
No, but I recognize Dumas first.
Oh, okay.
Let me backtrack. To authorize the special event request by the Starkville Junior Auxiliary for street closing and in-kind services for the 2012 Junior Auxiliary Chili Fest, scheduled for Friday, October 19th, 2012, on Main Street with one block street closing from Lafayette Street to Jackson Street from 5 to 8 p.m. as presented, with the exception of the provision that allowed the organization to charge a gated attendance to the event. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
That is correct.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And the motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, by a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of the annual contract with our beloved city attorney and Mitchell McNutt and Sams for the services of general counsel for the city of Starkville. Motion's been made by Alderman Dumas to approve the contract as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that exhausts the open session portion of our agenda. We do have some matters potentially for consideration in executive session. Do I hear a motion to go into a closed session? Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to go into closed session to determine whether there's a need for an executive session. Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. At this time, we'll give everybody a moment to clear the room so that we can move into a